Fast food burgers are famous for their low prices. Americans eat an average of 16 billion burgers a year. The most iconic burger chains in the world, McDonald's, Burger King, and Wendy's, all offer their signature burgers for less than $5. But does that low price tag really reflect the true cost of a burger? Breaking down the true cost of a hamburger is a tricky feat for a lot of reasons. For starters, the government subsidizes the meat and dairy industries with $38 billion every year. Then, there are a number of outside factors called externalities. In economics, an externality is the cost or benefit that affects a party who did not choose to incur that cost or benefit. Externalities often occur when a product or service's price equilibrium cannot reflect the true costs and benefits of that product or service. According to the Good Food Institute, a nonprofit that advocates for the advancement of plant-based food and clean meat, there are multiple externalities to consider when looking at the meat industry, each of which adds to the true cost of a burger. Those externalities are resource use, climate change, pollution, and antibiotic resistance. Each of these can be divided into additional points that often overlap, and we can also tack on healthcare costs from fast food heavy diets. Resource use. Animal agriculture is the leading cause of deforestation worldwide, and 3/4 of global arable land is dedicated to its production. Deforestation threatens ecosystems vulnerable to mass extinctions that have the potential to destabilize global economies. Feeding industrially raised animals also requires vast quantities of land, which could be used to grow food for humans. In the US, food wasted from feeding animals on factory farms outweighs food wasted by all grocers, restaurants, and consumers combined. 40% of US cropland, fertilizer, and irrigation water is used to grow animal feed. Studies show that American farmers could feed twice as many people a more nutritious diet by growing food for people instead of animals. Climate change. Animal agriculture is one of the leading contributors to greenhouse gas emissions. The FAO estimates that 18% of all GHGs come from the meat, dairy, and egg industries. Emissions come from 3 major sources: feed production, methane from cattle, and clearing forests and prairie land for pasture and cropland. For feed production, most emissions come from producing large quantities of fertilizer, which give off nitrous oxide, a greenhouse gas 300 times more potent than carbon dioxide. Ruminant livestock like cattle produce both CO2 and methane. Methane, which has 20 times the global warming potential of CO2, is produced via enteric fermentation, a natural part of a cow's digestive system, which accounts for 25% of all US greenhouse gas emissions. Microbes in their digestive tracts decompose and ferment food, creating methane as a byproduct. Then there's land destruction. When forests and grasslands are cleared for animal agriculture, the carbon stored in the soil, roots, stems, and branches is released into the atmosphere. Globally, land conversion may release as much carbon dioxide as all agricultural production combined, between 9,800 and 16,900 megatons. Trees are critical to the air we breathe, transforming carbon dioxide into life-giving oxygen. According to a study from the Nature Conservancy, stopping deforestation, restoring forests, and adopting good forestry practices would deliver 40% of total emissions reductions through low-cost solutions. The issues are interconnected. Take beef production, for example. It is behind 80% of Amazon rainforest destruction, and the fires that threaten to harm the forests beyond repair.
Eu penso na futura geração dos nossos filhos, dos nossos netos, não pode respirar o mesmo ar que a gente está respirando hoje.
The Amazon is the biggest exporter of beef in the world. These forests, which supply 20% of the world's oxygen, are at risk of being destroyed due to the human appetite for beef. Its destruction could cause catastrophic changes to the climate, water availability, and food security worldwide. The US government's official monetary valuation of greenhouse gas pollution is around $37 per metric ton of CO2 emissions. A pound of burger meat adds roundly 25 pounds of CO2 emissions to the atmosphere. So externalities for a burger could range between 15 cents per burger to $1.20. That's not counting the carbon cost of everything else included in producing that burger. Pollution and sickness. Factory farms pose serious environmental risks to the cities and towns they neighbor. They pollute local waterways and emit ammonia and hydrogen sulfide gases that sicken people in nearby communities. Living near factory farms is also known to cause or exacerbate a number of health issues, such as asthma, chronic headache, burning eyes, excessive coughing, and sore throats. There are also persistent smells as well as noise pollution. Full waste lagoons on factory farms run the risk of spilling over and causing further pollution, which can be worsened by natural disasters. Untreated waste contributes to deadly algal blooms and ocean dead zones, areas of water completely devoid of life due to low oxygen levels. Dead zones are caused by eutrophication, which happens when water gets too many nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus. Atmospheric sources of nitrogen, like fertilizer, also contribute to dead zones. Excess nutrients help phytoplankton, algae, and seaweed grow quickly on the ocean surface. They blanket the ocean surfaces, preventing sunlight from reaching other ocean plant life that marine animals depend on for food. Populations of shorebirds and animals like sea lions that rely on fish for food also suffer as a consequence.
Once they move east in the lake, die and sink to the bottom, they're decomposed by bacteria. But as this decomposition happens, they suck oxygen out of the bottom waters. And so they can have an impact on fish populations and some of our critters that live at the bottom of the lake because it's depleted of oxygen.
Algal blooms, also known as the red tide, are not only bad for marine ecosystems, but also for humans. Filter-feeding shellfish like mussels and oysters absorb the toxic microbes found in blooms and can cause shellfish poisoning. Fertilizer causes sickness in other ways. Untreated manure spread over crop fields can cause disease like E. coli, norovirus, and salmonella. Over the past few years, romaine lettuce contaminated with E. coli, caused by manure-contaminated water, has sparked discussions around food safety. But contaminated animal products are more deadly, directly responsible for 52% of all foodborne illnesses in the US. Manure contamination sends 30,000 Americans to the hospital and kills hundreds every year. Antibiotic resistance. Current livestock rearing practices cause the antibiotic-resistant bacteria crisis. Antibiotics are a staple of factory farming. Housing thousands of animals under one roof is a breeding ground for infection and disease. On the average chicken farm, birds have less than 1 square foot of room to move. Beef cattle are raised on feedlots, where they have no room to graze. Intense confinement leads to unsanitary conditions, and antibiotics are routinely administered to animals, regardless of sickness, to prevent outbreaks. Antibiotics also help farm animals grow faster on less food, so the factory farming industry can make more money with less effort. The heavy antibiotic use on farms can turn animals into disease factories for deadly microorganisms, like Staphylococcus aureus, MRSA, which is resistant to some of the most common antibiotics: methicillin, amoxicillin, penicillin, and oxacillin. This has significant repercussions for human health. 1 in 5 resistant infections are caused by food or animals, according to the CDC. Bacteria spread through animal products, the factory farm itself, contaminated food prep surfaces, and even produce. Research estimates that resistant bacteria could cause as many as 10 million deaths annually by 2050. Health. Fast food burgers are high in fat, salt, and calories. On average, Americans get more than 11% of their daily calories from fast food alone. 44.9% of adults between 20 and 39 eat fast food daily. Diets heavy in red meat are linked to a number of chronic health conditions, such as heart disease, high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, obesity, and certain forms of cancer. According to a 2018 CDC report, chronic diseases cost the healthcare system $190 billion per year. So, what's the true cost of that burger? The true cost is tough to pin down, but astonishingly large. When you break it down, fast food burgers should cost far more than $5 for their effects on the environment, health, and animals. Alternatives like plant-based meat and the burgeoning clean meat industry eliminate the threats caused by burgers. For example, it takes 58 gallons of water and 41 square feet of land to make 1/4 pounder beef burger. A vegan Beyond Burger calls for 99% less water, 93% less land, and 90% fewer greenhouse gas emissions. A 41 square foot plot of land can make just one beef burger for every 15 Beyond Burgers. Compared to 80 milligrams of cholesterol in a traditional Burger King Whopper, the Impossible Patty has none. Beyond Meat is one of several next-generation vegan burgers on the market now. They look and taste like the real thing, and they've attracted a whole new flexitarian consumer base. With vegan burgers becoming more readily available in mainstream restaurant chains, it's now easier than ever to make the less costly choice for the planet, health, and animals. So, what's the real cost of that burger? It's impossible to tell, and that's a big problem. But if the price did accurately reflect the true costs, one thing's for sure, we'd all be eating a lot less meat.